much for waiting. We will now open up the panel discussion on the Canadian AI ecosystem. And the opening remarks will be carried out by Mr. Stéphane Charbonneau, the Senior Trade Commissioner from the Canadian Embassy in Austria, Vienna. So please, Stéphane, the stage is yours.
For 125 years, the Trade Commissioner Service of Canada has been helping Canadian companies navigate international markets. We're in more than 166 cities worldwide and can provide Canadians with key business insights and access to an unbeatable network of international contacts. And for foreign contacts, we offer access and insight into potential Canadian partners. Operate in trade, in investment, and in science, technology, and innovation. I'm very pleased today to attend this virtual conference as artificial intelligence and the development of an AI ecosystem is of great importance to Canada. Canada was a leader in launching a national AI strategy with 4 major goals. Increase the number of outstanding AI researchers and skilled graduates in Canada. Establish interconnected nodes of scientific excellence in Canada's 3 major centers for AI in Montreal, Edmonton, and Toronto Waterloo. Develop global leadership, thought leadership on economic, ethical, policy, and legal implications of advances in AI. And finally, to support a national research community on AI. With over 800 AI startups, 60 public research labs, 75 incubators, and 60 investor groups, Canada has a strong AI ecosystem centered in the 3 clusters I just mentioned, but not limited to those. For example, I'm aware that we have several companies from Vancouver attending our conference today. But each of these 3 clusters I mentioned has their own focus and expertise. In Montreal, l'Institut de Valorisation des Données, IVADO, and the Montreal Institute for Learning Algorithms, MILA, founded by deep learning pioneer and world expert Dr. Yoshua Bengio, focus on machine learning through deep neural networks. I'm sure you have also heard about the company Element AI, who is here today as well. Toronto also has expertise in deep learning. AI research pioneer Dr. Jeffrey Hinton is a chief scientific advisor to the Vector Institute and provides overall vision, guidance, and inspiration. Other incubators and institutes in Toronto are Next AI, Creative Destruction Lab, and 111. Finally, Edmonton has expertise in reinforcement learning, anchored by the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute and the work of Dr. Richard Sutton. Canada has been traditionally viewed as having a wealth of natural resources. Today, we are ever more known for our people and our intellectual resources in an increasingly services-focused economy. Canada is attracting some of the best talent in the world to work in innovative companies and research institutes, attracted by our stable economy, our safe and welcoming social milieu, our excellent educational infrastructure. In Canada, you'll find a diverse, mobile, and highly qualified pool of talent. If you'd like to explore Canada further after this conference, I encourage you to contact our embassy or consulate office near where you are located, where trade commissioners like me and my team are eager to help to get to know you and help you increase your business with Canada. We have direct access to investment contacts and research networks at national, provincial, and municipal levels within Canada and are well positioned to discuss your future links to Canada. I'm looking forward to the exciting panel discussion on the Canadian AI ecosystem today with Frédéric Bouchard from Element AI, Jean-Philippe Poulin from Centec, and Anna Solaire from Montreal International. And I thank you for your attention this afternoon here in Vienna, this morning in North America, and now I'll turn it over to Frédéric Bouchard of Element AI. Merci beaucoup.
Bonjour, merci Stéphane pour l'introduction. Hello everyone, good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you to the organizers, WKO and AI Austria for having me today. My name is Frédéric Bouchard and I work for a Canadian-based AI firm called Element AI that some of you might know. I am in the government relations and public policy team. Now I have some slides to share with you today, so bear with me. I think you should be able to see them now. Okay. I believe that some of you might have just heard my colleague Alex Shi presenting on operationalizing AI in the enterprise. On my end, I'll try to give you a glimpse into the Canadian AI ecosystem. So for those that don't know us, Element AI is a 3.5 years old company. We support businesses as they accelerate their implementation of responsible AI, both in Canada and abroad. We have offices in Montreal, Toronto, London, Paris, Seoul, and Singapore. And while we don't have a physical presence in Germany, Austria, or Switzerland, the region is still a very important focus of our European operations, where we travel regularly, or at least we used to. Our European business operations are led from London and Paris, and the focus is on solutions for the insurance and manufacturing sectors, especially pharma, chemistry, and cosmetics these days, as well as data and computing centers infrastructure. Feel free to message me if you have questions on that end. Now, if we take a look at what Canada is traditionally known for, tech didn't used to be the first on the list. There's no doubt that we're known for maple syrup, harsh winters, and hockey titles. That being said, AI is definitely one of them these days, and that is no coincidence. A few decades ago, Canadian government took a VC bet on artificial intelligence research, and that paid off. 30 years ago, the government was funding fundamental research at a time where funds was very scarce in the field. And yes, I said 30 years ago. Years later, that ultimately led to the breakthroughs in machine learning by the recent Turing Prize winners that Stéphane was just mentioning. So you'll be familiar with Yoshua Bengio, Jeff Hinton, Yann LeCun, or how I like to call them, the Canadian Mafia. And now let me share with you a few numbers that we've seen since that have supported the growth of this ecosystem. In 2017, the federal government announced its AI national strategy, which was the first ever at the time. And we saw the birth of the three Canadian AI institutes. We also saw the creation of 5 technology superclusters to boost tech adoption, including AI. Those received close to $1 billion in funding. And the Canadian government also increased science funding by nearly $4 billion in over the next several years. And the reason why I mentioned these is that how these funding have been crucial to help explain why the Canadian AI ecosystem has one of the biggest talent pools in the world. So Canada hosts the 5th largest number of AI experts. And I think we're seeing that how that served us up until now. And last but not least, after a short successful pilot, the global skill strategy was officially made permanent last year by the federal government. What often takes 18 months in the States to obtain working visas has been fast-tracked to just a few weeks by Ottawa, but for the worker seeking to obtain a visa and their spouse. And the reason I mentioned this is that, again, Element AI is a big user of that specific stream, and that's one of the main ways we attract foreign talents. Now let's take a look at, the current state of our ecosystem. Every year, we publish a mapping of the Canadian AI ecosystem. So this is the latest version that was published in November 2018. Our strengths, research, and collaboration between academia and industry. While I will let Anna give you a full rundown on the Montreal ecosystem, we can certainly take a closer look at Toronto. Its biggest advantage is its strong financial sector, which enables a very active startup space. Some of the organizations and companies were mentioned by Stéphane previously. In Vancouver, the proximity to the Asian markets tend to be very helpful as they are more mature than the North American counterparts very often. And in Waterloo, we're seeing a large amount of talent groomed to be entrepreneurs and supported in their endeavors by a local university. This is true since the AI boom, but this was true previously as well. And now a few key numbers for 2019. What we see is that the growth rate of the number of AI startups is falling while still being positive. So we're now seeing a growth rate of 5% as opposed to 28% in the previous year. Startup funding is switching to later in the life cycle, so later stages, and AI solutions providers are taking a rapidly increasing share of the overall enterprise solutions market. Essentially, we can say that the ecosystem is maturing. Now let's dive a little deeper. The number of new AI companies in Canada has grown over the past few years, even as the broader tech industry has seen a worldwide slowdown in new company generation. As I was mentioning, overall growth dropped to 5% in 2018 while still being positive, compared to 28% in 2017. The natural attrition and challenges of building a startup, especially the question of product and market fit, are major barriers. At least that's what we're hearing, as is recruiting talent in a very competitive market. That said, I think it's pretty natural to see an attrition rate rise as the high growth period transitions to more mature, stable growth. Canada remains a destination for international organizations, hopefully some of you as well, when they're looking to build their AI efforts. We estimate that around 70 large organizations had a research lab or other AI focus group in Canada in 2018, up from 15 the previous year. And now I'm about to share with you what I think is the most exciting stat that I will share today. Our market intelligence research shows that the overall market for AI solutions is accelerating. We all know that AI, it was fairly recent. I think there was a number of adjustments to be made in that market, both from data readiness to talent being transferred to the adoption front as well. But in 2018, revenue for AI enterprise solution companies in Canada rose to 65% from the year before, and have grown to represent nearly 5% of the enterprise solutions market revenue overall. So for our companies like ours, that's really exciting. Now let's have a look at AI investments. As I said, even if AI startup growth slowed down in 2018, the number of funding deals continued to expand. In 2018, we saw the strongest year to date for AI funding in Canada, with an estimated $660 million US dollars raised across 98 rounds. Our company was one of them, with raising our Series B last September. That was $150 million. What's changing is the maturity of the companies being funded. So early round funding, such as Series C or Series A, declined as a share of the total funding, even as the overall numbers rose. And 7 of the 10 most active investors in 2018 are based in Canada, as opposed to international sources. Now, if we look at investments over time, we can clearly see the maturation trend. 2014, 2017 was a story of acceleration, with early stage deals taking more of the overall share. In 2018, the overall weight of these deals decreased significantly. What that means is that startups are attracting investments and attention later in their life cycles, a key indicators of, again, a maturing market. Now on the talent front, our findings show that the United States, China, United Kingdom, Australia, and Canada lead in high impact research. Canada is in the top 5 for both supply, the number of high impact researchers, and in terms of demand for job openings. We also found that women represented 18% of the conference authors overall. In Canada, this ratio is 14%, so we clearly have some work still left to do on that front. We also know that the AI talent pool is highly mobile, with about 1/3 of researchers working for an employer based in a country that is different from the country where they received their PhD. And Canada is and remains a destination for global talent, attracting workers that were trained abroad. Some of the workers that we trained here are also leaving. That being said, the overall number of researchers is growing in the country. Now, I think it's important to look at these figures in context. Both the figures that I presented from our findings and the current index that you see here were published last fall. This is a global AI index that is published by Tortoise Media. It was first launched last December, and I would strongly invite you to have a look at it. It essentially compares the state of national AI landscapes across 60 countries based on 7 pillars. So you're seeing here talent, infrastructure, operating environment, research, development, government strategy, and commercialization. As you can see, Canada ranks fairly well and punches above its weight, ranking in the 4th spot. That being said, it's going to be very interesting to see how COVID and the current pandemic sort of impacts these numbers. And I was having a conversation with the head and the mind behind this index just last week, and she was explaining that they just reran the numbers to see what kind of trends we could extract from it that were either like progress from last December or being impacted by the pandemic. And she was saying that it was so hard to extract from the noise that we're seeing and too early to predict any trends. It's going to be very interesting, I think, to see the second edition they come out with in December and how the current geosocial and global trends that we're seeing impact this. On that note, Tortoise Media is hosting an AI summit this coming Friday, which is called AI in the Age of Pandemic. And they have a very impressive lineup that might help to shed some light on what's to come for the AI ecosystem, both for Canada, but also more globally. So I would invite you to have a look at it, and feel free to reach out to me if you'd like an invite. I'll be able to share. Well, I hope you found this useful or at least interesting. I'll be happy to take questions. And now over to you, Jean-Philippe.
Thank you very much, Frédéric, and thank you, Stéphane. Thank you, WKO, for inviting me. So I'm Jean-Philippe Poulin, so I'm the head of Open Innovation at Sentech. So I'll explain you more what is Sentech. And so as you've seen, it's like Montreal has and Canada has a very, very rich AI ecosystem. You'll see even more numbers with Anna just afterwards. And I want to discuss more a bit how startups and big corporations can consume better that ecosystem. So that's why it's kind of a bridge between the numbers and the real world. So basically, at the heart, so Sentech is a incubator accelerator of high-tech companies. So we have one of the biggest pipeline in Montreal in terms of high-tech startups. So we have that lucky. We have in Montreal, there's a lot of universities. So there's a big pool of talents and as well like great technologies. So lately, 2 years ago, we started to include the major corporations within the ecosystem just to better consume that ecosystem because they don't know everything about it. So basically, we started with the College and Lab at Sentech. So which is for corporations to better consume that innovation ecosystem, which is very rich. There's a lot of players, so it's better to understand it and consume it to better achieve their own goals. So that one open innovation platform that we have, it's really there to stimulate and accelerate that innovation. We do that on 3 fronts, and you'll see after it's really the concrete how the different major corporation actually uses that. So we really have like a business need. So for sure, it's the key. Everybody knows that. So we're really listening to what companies are looking for. So to answer to their challenges, needs, problem, however we define it. And also the tech sourcing part. So we've seen like there was in that chart from Frédéric, there's a tremendous amount of people in that space. So you need those players, you need those mappings, but you need also to be able to filter it to see which one better serves your actual needs and with whom you can actually work with, because it's so that's the part of our tech sourcing part. So we play a role of, let's say we call it like expert of the ecosystem, and you guys are the expert of your industry. So that's a bit how we work together. And for sure, like we call it the Sentech ecosystem, but it's more the Montreal or Canadian ecosystem. So because Sentech is a neutral platform, so we connect with different players, as you're gonna see, especially in the AI space, more and more. Whoops. But yeah, so now I'm gonna go into concrete. So basically, of how we do it. So a group that a lot of you guys know. So it's like the Thales Digital Accelerator. So basically, Thales Group is with us, and they have actually they are neighbors also with Element AI. So basically, their strategy is really to go on 2 fronts. So they went at the heart of the AI ecosystem. So in this like close to the offices of Element AI with their R&D lab. So it's internal R&D lab for their own services. but they went closer to the downtown ecosystem for more the startup ecosystem, because as you may know, so for those big corporations, what they want to do is really to consume and accelerate it. They're not going to be aware of everything that is going on, because R&D labs are used to be more closed environment, a bit more secretive, which is totally okay. So that's why the strategy is more on the AI at Santec, and also the Cyber at Station F. Cyber at Station F is more for cybersecurity, but AI at Santec is more AI focused. So basically, they're looking for startups all around the world to answer their different challenges. Here's the latest challenges that they just closed up. Just to give you an example of what are the type of challenges they're going to say. It's fairly open, so you can see like they're extremely AI focused. That's what they're there in Montreal for. So you see, so just to give you an example. And after that, us, like our role is really to help them filtering, finding new startups, because we are in that ecosystem. And from those, their first season, this is what they came up with. So basically, there are 4 startups. They do like small cohorts, like 4 or 5 maximum. And really, their goal is really to find one that is serving one of the business challenge coming from all the business lines around the world, and basically to assign a business person from that business line and a technical person after almost all the time coming from their R&D lab in the Milex, and really to connect them with the startups to better serve the Thales needs. So it's really how they work. So we help them in terms of like to work together. So they work throughout like 6 months length with the startups to really bring and integrate that technology inside. So basically, even the startups, they have different level of maturity. So that's our role, like to help them gain that same maturity to be able to serve that bigger corporations, and also help Thales Group to better consume that startup. So that's a bit how they work. If you look at the ICM Hub, for example, that one has been already integrated. So basically, it's the intelligence behind the infotainment of like aerospace little screens. So basically that they've been integrating it, so they can better serve like any clients that are gonna fly eventually. But now there's a bit old on that. But you can see also like in the transportation, maritimes as well. So it's really different ways, but they're very concrete. They're really putting a lot of effort, like the Thales Digital Group, to really integrate that technology. So that's one way, like a platform can help consume that ecosystem, because it's very broad, like, as we saw it. So they always do it for those who are a bit aware of it. So really they do the selection, they explore, they define, but always with their teams, and trying to push it as far as possible to actually do a proof of concept. So they're gonna pay for that proof of concept to really build that business relation. So they do it over 6 months, because it's kind of the minimum a bigger corporation can do in terms of speed. So for sure there's less speed, but it's very interesting. So that's one way to consume that AI ecosystem. So it's really to go either with the R&D hub, like in Montreal, because you're going to see even more numbers after with Anna, and or using more the startup ecosystem. We have another one that is very active. It's a different way of using it, and they do it in different parts. The ecosystem is very large. So basically, as a first part, as a corporation, Port of Montreal, even different ports, they're not always targeted as let's say a technology company. So basically, Port of Montreal, they came with us really as one of our corporate members, and really helping them to become that new digital solution offering. So basically, this is exactly what they're doing now. So the first part is really to understand a bit what, like, digitalizing different part of it was really a foundation to understand, okay, you need to create data to start building intelligence. So we did the first part, a very smaller targeted projects. But now actually they just launched like the full, because of the pandemic and the COVID. So basically they started a fast track. So it was a bit based on that philosophy of digitalizing the full equipment. So if they've done it with other members, like other like Vado Labs and Scale AI, which is the financial supercluster that Frederic was mentioning. So those are kind of new ways to do it. So basically, they came without knowing necessarily the ecosystem, but they are there to get some companionship and really consume well the ecosystem. So they've done from the early stage with us. We do really more early stage, but to go with more mature and being ready to have that strategy, AI strategy moving forward. So that's one of the carriers. And if we go more on the public side, so it's like Loto-Québec for us is the gambling casino regulatory state-owned entity, and really something that is very surprising. So they really came with a business seat again, as I was mentioning. So, and they just had like an operational management around like gambling tables. That just didn't have any like analytics or anything. So we started like to pitch that in front of let's say a great pool of talent for them to propose their friend solution. And after that, like one of those teams, they decided to come into one of those incubator. Like they came to us, and actually as well as with the next AI, like Stefan was mentioning. And really to consume that, we gain the maturity, and now they're becoming a supplier for Loto-Québec. So it's very good. Like they created their own supplier with that ecosystem. So that's something very interesting. And now it's really to move that forwards and consuming more that ecosystem. So that's a bit of different ways. It's really that. So now you're gonna see with Anna in a few seconds other like how to consume that extremely rich AI ecosystem, especially in Canada. So don't be like, oh wow, okay, so many. How do we deal with all that? There's different players, especially like in Canada. Their role is that because we know we have a very rich ecosystem. So it's really to work with them and alongside with them to give you the better tools to consume the right fit for you guys. But so I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to contact me or get a meeting. But now I'll let Anna pursue on further richness of our AI ecosystem.
Thank you, Jean-Philippe, and thank you also to the organizers for organizing and bringing us together, even if it's virtually on this panel on Canadian AI. Just to present myself briefly, I'm Anna Sola from Montreal International, and I'm responsible for the Northern European countries, of which Germany, Switzerland, and Austria are part of this territory. So certainly you already asked yourself, you already saw that about the Canadian AI ecosystem, about how we can work together, startups and bigger corporations. But why did and are still all of these big AI giants are heading north to Montreal? Here you have a few of the examples. Starting really in 2016, Google opened their Brain Montreal AI research labs. Microsoft came, IBM, Facebook Research, Huawei, Samsung, Ericsson. So you can see there has been happening a lot since 2016 in the AI ecosystem in Montreal. And one of the reasons is the federal and the provincial support, which is there to foster the AI development. So here you can see some examples of the major public investments which have been made, like, for example, the first Research Excellence Fund in 2016, which was funded with more than 93 million Canadian dollars. Also, the creation of a Quebec AI cluster has been funded with more than $140 million. And as Frédéric already mentioned, Montreal has been chosen to become the headquarter of one of the pan-Canadian superclusters, the one which is specialized on AI, Scale AI. And this Canadian AI cluster has been funded with more than 330 million for the cluster itself and for the development as well for AI talent. And 329 million has been given for the next 5 years to accelerate the adoption of AI in Quebec. So to make it applied AI, which is also the topic of this conference today. Here, I won't dive too deep into that, but here you can just see some incentives which are also available for companies who set up here in Greater Montreal. There's, for example, their R&D tax credit covering 15 or 14% of all our eligible R&D expenditures. There's the e-business tax credit for software development, IT consulting. There is financial assistance for job creation and training, and there's also tax holiday for foreign researchers and experts who come to Quebec to work here, who come here from abroad. Another reason of the AI boom in Greater Montreal is the deep and growing pool of the highly qualified talent. So Montreal is Canada's university capital. We do have 11 higher education institutions, such as McGill University, Université de Montréal, HEC Montreal for business programs, and as well ETS Montreal, which is for an engineering school. So Montreal has one of the deepest AI pools in the world. We do have 300 plus independent researchers, mainly doctoral students. We do have 15,000 industry experts, which are related in some way or another to AI and the ICT sector. And we do have more than 11,000 students, which are enrolled in AI-related programs like computer sciences. So the recent explosion of the AI global leaders, another reason is the best AI accelerators and incubators we do have here in Montreal. There's, for example, Techstars, Next AI, Tandem Lounge, Founder Fuel, CDL, Creative Destruction Lab, and of course our great Centec, which you now know better thanks to Jean-Philippe. There you can see some of the startups we do have here, and the funding, also the VC funding in Montreal is very generous. So we have, in 2018, we had 861 million funded in VC in Montreal. Here you can see some examples. For example, Element AI raised more than 151 million or 102 million. 2017, Hopper as well, 100 million in October, but there are other companies as well, like Nubo, Algolux, who raised several million in Series A and Series B. Those are just some examples of the Montreal-made AI companies, such as Element AI as well. But there are several sectors and industries which are really covered, such as life sciences and health technology. There's Imagia, which is an AI-driven personalized care. Arctic Fox, AI-assisted radiology for Alzheimer's and related dementias. But also other sectors like Wrench, digitizing human motion and behavior from standard video. Algolux, who are using machine learning to empower camera to see more clearly. So this will be very important for the autonomous driving and autonomous vehicles. Or Lyrebird, who is developing a new generation of speech synthesis technologies using AI. So there are really various applications in Greater Montreal and various companies in Montreal for AI. So in a nutshell, altogether, why AI has become such a great hub for, why Montreal has become such a great hub for AI. As I said, the federal and provincial support, the Montreal as a magnet for the AI talent, the explosion of all the different AI leaders we do have here in Montreal, the world-renowned accelerators, the critical and also what makes the ecosystem here very unique is the interconnectedness and the collaborative spirit. So people and companies are really willing to work together and to collaborate. And of course, Montreal is a competitive place to do business. If it's for the easiness of doing business, of getting a working permit, or just of incorporating, which just takes about 2 or 3 days. So if you're interested in learning more about setting up a business in Montreal, those are some free and confidential services Montreal International can offer you, like incentive programs assistance, foreign workers, immigration assistance, international recruiting. Don't hesitate to reach out. You do have my coordinates here. And with this, I say thank you, and I will give over to our moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Actually, thank you to the four of you. As expected, a couple of questions popped up. How does the financial support and so on look like? You actually have this already answered in one of the slides. So let me pick up another question in that regard. How many companies actually relocated? Do you have numbers on that? Like 20, 50, 200 in the last, let's say, 3 or 4 years?
Years, I think we did have more than 30 AI projects just alone with Montreal International where we accompanied. So with AI companies in Montreal. So as I said, we have a lot of projects, more than 30 we accompanied. So there's a lot happening, and we're always welcoming for more.
Good. Then I have one question specifically directed towards Jean-Philippe, period. Many companies in Europe, actually big corporations, they are participating in similar accelerator/incubator programs, and they're toying with the idea of creating digital spin-outs. Is this something that's already happening in your surrounding, or is this also something that is still at the idea stage for the companies you're dealing with?
The program you saw with that we work with Thales, they're mainly all around the world. So basically, the first season they had like 2 French companies, 1 American company, and there was only 1 from Montreal. And now actually when we do the pre-selection, the last 20 companies that we're looking at for the season 2, there were only 3 from Canada. All the rest, they were from Japan, Italy, Portugal, South America, I think it was Colombia. So that is great. We have a few that is coming. We want to get more. Actually, we were looking even for different initiatives to actually foster that. And also in terms of spin-off, we do actually, we're almost in our 3rd company that we're literally spinning off from ground, really coming from the business need. If there's no startup that are doing that, so we get a pool of talents, and it turns out they for sure in an entrepreneurial ecosystem. So they decide just to go beyond just solving the solution and want to put it further and stuff like that. So yeah, we do that with it really comes with major corporations.